Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we are live. Today is a bit different. This is a Zoom call with Dr. Khoulah Hakkoum. We are going, of course, to discuss 6 topics that have been previously done at different universities across Algeria. I think most of them are between 2017 and 2019. And we are going to go through them one by one. And we are going to guide you by asking 3 questions. The first question that we are going to ask is, what kind of question is it? The topic given to you. And then the second question, how to answer it in terms of ACE structure. And the last question is how to answer it in terms of content. That is, what are the best possible answers that you can give? Now, we've had many different topics, of course, to choose from. I think more than 20. And we have narrowed it down to 6 topics previously done at different universities, from the universities in Tlemcen to Bawaqi, etc., etc. So we have narrowed it down to 5 topics, and these 5 topics are about 3 fields in the English language. These are about didactics or TEFL, then literature, and we've had civilization, but we have omitted that. So we have the third area, of course, or field that we have chosen is a bit related to applied linguistics. And we have that in one topic. So to assist me today and open with me a discussion today about these different topics, I have Dr. Khoulah Hakkoum, who is a teacher at the University of Wergla. Hello, Khoulah.
Hello, sir.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm fine. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. So the way we are going to proceed is we are going to read the topics one by one, and then we are going to open the discussion about the best way to answer these questions or to answer these topics in order to help, of course, and to give an idea to our students at the University of Wergla and at different universities across Algeria about how to answer the questions or the topics that they are going to have in the PhD entrance examination. So the first one that we are going to start with is in didactics. You can, of course, all see the topic here. This is from the University of Algiers, I think, back in 2017, is it? 17, 18. So the topic is, there is no best method of teaching because each approach or method has an articulated theoretical orientation, as well as strategies and learning activities to achieve learning outcomes. Write an essay on this statement and give examples related to an EFL context. All right, so let's start with what kind of question is it? Khoulah, what do you think is the kind of question that we have here, since we have a paragraph and then an instruction below that?
Okay, first, sir, can you zoom in the question, please?
Sure. Can you see it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So apparently, like when you read the first passage, it seems like there is a discussion needed here about the use of the different methods in the EFL classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, and the theoretical basis and the strategies and types of instructions used in like each method.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, this doesn't seem like a direct question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you think that the kind of question that we have here is a debate?
It's a debate.
Yes. Now, are there any like keywords that a candidate can identify in order to know that this is a debate and not something else?
Well, I think we can refer to the first sentence, which is there is no best method of teaching,
Mm-hmm.
because each approach
Mm-hmm.
or method has an articulated. So here we can see that there are different like viewpoints about the different methods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So this is one among others then. So, I mean, this statement says clearly there is no best method of teaching. It assumes that there is another view that would say there is one best method, right? So do you think that it asks the candidate to write an essay on this statement, like to give their opinion about this particular issue?
I think that here, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
I think that here there is no direct requirement of the candidate to talk about the opinion or
Mm-hmm.
his or her opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but in fact to talk about the debate between there is no best method or there is the best method.
Mm-hmm. 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 I see. Yes. Yes. Sure.
There is an assumption that all the methods do not work, let's say, sufficiently enough or sufficiently good in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
When we say there is no best method of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
each method will have some weaknesses.
Yes. Okay. So if we can now go through what is the best way to answer this in terms of paragraph structure, what do you think is a good way to start answering this essay question? Like, do you think, for example, that the candidate should first start with talking about the fact that there is no best method in general, that is to agree with this, and then from there give examples? Or let's start with the beginning, that is, what should the candidate, in your opinion, start with?
I think that the candidate here can start like by talking about there is a debate. First of all,
but about the fact that there is a debate, that there are other people who say that there is a best method.
Yeah, so here we can talk about that there is no agreement about what is the best method to teach language. First of all, this is just to put the reader in the context.
Sure. It's very important, I think, to contextualize here the issue, and I think that this question is asked in this regard with the background knowledge that there is this particular debate about the one best method, and the fact that by now, after pretty much like 100 years of trying to find the one best method and coming to the conclusion that there is no such thing, I think that this shows again, this question will bring out the background knowledge that the candidate has about the history of TEFL. Do you think that it's important here then to talk about the history of TEFL in terms of how for a long time there was this search for a best method to learn a language?
Yes, I think that this should lead to the point that there is a debate. So like that people have been trying to find a method to teach English in the best way possible. And it seems that each time they find a method, they fail, or they find some weaknesses and shortcomings of that method, which leads to the introduction of another method after that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So then we have, what do you think the candidate here, if you had this question, what do you think you would tackle next? That is examples, or talk about a specific method, or talk about different methods? That is, for example, say that the communicative approach, for example, is appropriate and very helpful in a certain context, but not in another. And say, for example, that the reading approach or whatever else is appropriate in this particular context and not in another. Or what is one way a candidate can approach this in your mind?
I think that there are two possible ways to approach this. Maybe the first one, the candidate can go thematically, like go from one approach to another. Yes, and of course illustrating, or he would go
illustrating that it works in a specific context, but it cannot work in all contexts, for example.
Yes.
Okay.
Like talking about the principle of the approach, and then talking about the best, let's say, context it can work in, and then talking about the shortcomings.
Okay. Do you think that the candidate here should show knowledge of the terms that you have in the first paragraph, in the paragraph question, which is theoretical orientation, strategies and learning activities, and learning outcomes? Do you think that the candidate should, in the essay, show an understanding of these specific terms in TEFL?
Yes, of course. Do you mean, sir, that he should explain them?
Not exactly, not like explain them or define them, but show in an indirect way that he knows or she knows what these are about. For example, theoretical orientation, we mean by that, as far as the communicative approach, is that this is about the speaking skill, for example, in terms of theoretical orientation, and that it is about speaking production. Then when it comes to strategies and learning activities, you would, of course, here go more into working in pairs and group work. You have to show that you know the strategies and learning activities, and that it is more student-centered than teacher-centered. And the learning outcomes, of course, I think that the candidate should here show that they know what we mean by learning outcomes, by referring to the fact that the communicative approach, for example, has as a learning outcome achieving tasks, for example.
Yes, I think that the basis of comparison between these approaches should be these points: the theoretical orientation, the strategies, the learning activities, and the learning outcomes. So each time the candidate tackles one approach, should talk about these 4 elements in this approach.
Okay.
Because this is what makes one approach different from the other one.
Okay. So this is then in terms of the essay structure and how to tackle this and approach this. And of course, we should stress here that it's very important for the candidate to first have an outline. It's very important to do that. How do you think that writing an outline is helpful in this particular case?
Yes, it is. And in all the cases, in fact.
In all the cases, yes, yes. And we are going to stress that all along, because I think that this is very important. Yes. So how do you think an outline here is important and can help the candidate, of course, in answering the question effectively?
Yeah, because, due to the time limitations that they have, it is not possible that you draft a whole essay and then revise it again and then copy it on the answer sheet.
Sure. So the thing that the candidate shouldn't do is to directly start writing. No, never do that.
Yes. But you shouldn't directly start writing, and at the same time, it is not possible to write like a 5 or 6 paragraph essay and then copy it and then revise it and then copy it again.
Sure.
Because of time constraints. So an outline would get you half of the job done. Would help you not to forget the main elements that you want to talk about, because most of the time in exam essays, students improvise.
Yes.
So this would lead, especially with the people who are with problems in their memory. They forget. People who forget a lot. They may drop very important ideas in the discussion. So an outline would help you do this. Would guarantee that all your topic sentences are very well written and clearly written, and then the developments and the illustrations would be easily done.
I see. Now, do you think that then an outline, in this case, an outline then is very important? That is, in practice, how long do you think should a candidate spend in writing an outline? Like 15 minutes? 15 minutes is good?
Yes.
Yeah. If they have 2 hours, like 15 minutes is good?
I think it depends on the type of the outline they are writing.
Sure.
If it is a topic outline, so 15 minutes would be enough. But if it is a sentence outline, they can take up till 25 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
Because they are going to have ready-made sentences, and all they have to do later on is like to make them coherent and cohesive.
Yes. Okay. Sure. So for those who are watching or listening to this, you can go into how to write an outline online. You can research how to do that. I think it's very important to do that. And we are stressing this because remember that this is a contest. That is, they are going to select a limited number of winners for this. So this is not an exam in which you are trying to get a good mark. This is a competition in which you are trying to be the best. And in order to be the best, you have to show that you are the best. And the best way to show that you are the best is to show really that your essay is well organized. The examiners, the assessors, the examiners who are, of course, assessing your essay will know that you have written an outline because there are certain things that we can see in the essay structure from the layout. Like from the layout, what do you think, Khawla, is one thing that the candidate should pay attention to? That is the layout on the paper.
Yes, it is really important, because maybe people who have an experience and who have corrected before official exams like the BM or the back exams, they know that there are very special marks just for the formats of the paragraph or of the production. So the layout, let's say, between inverted commas, the shape of the essay, would count a lot, because it shows that you are masterful of essay writing. And this is also important.
Yes. So, for example, in terms of paragraph segmentation, these must be very clear, like paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this is a 5-paragraph essay with an introduction, a body, and the conclusion. So writing in one block, for example, is a very bad way to tackle this. And it's going to, you are going to be sanctioned severely for that. So pay attention to that. And I think also at the level of sentence structure. So when you say sentence structure, here there are many things involved, like grammar, like, for example, punctuation. All of that is very important, and you have to pay attention to that.
Indentation also at the beginning of paragraphs. Very important.
Yes.
To show that this is the beginning of the paragraph. And
exactly.
Also, it is important to avoid listing. So some would fall in the trap of writing an introduction, a conclusion, and then the body, they would write it in the form of a list. Yeah. So the question here, for example, says clearly write an essay. And we've got some other questions which require you to write a well-structured essay. Yes.
So even if you write an essay, you have to avoid listing within a paragraph. In other words, this doesn't have to be mechanical. Of course, try to avoid, I think, such things as first, second, third. These kinds of mechanical transitions are not very well thought of. So I think it's very important to pay attention to that, to coherence and cohesion, and to take a look at the connecting devices that you have in writing an essay. It's very important to do that.
Yeah, it's called the heavy-handed style, and this is like it's more like a beginner or a childish, let's say, style, child style, not style.
And of course, remember that you are trying to show that you are the best. So just like using these mechanical transitions, like first, second, or firstly, secondly, well, that shows that you don't have a very good command of the different devices or the different techniques or strategies in writing a paragraph or an essay at all. Yes.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yes. So I think we should move to the next one. So for this one, we have a bit discussed in the first part the content and also the type of question, and in the second part the essay structure. There are many things that we will not come back to when discussing the other topics. Is there something else you'd like to say about this one, Khawla?
Yes, I just have a question, sir.
Sure.
So what do you think the conclusion should be like in this type of essays?
The conclusion should always be, in my mind, the conclusion is very simple, because you just have to restate what you have already said. Don't take any chances with the conclusion. Don't start something new. Just restate what you have said in the introduction. That is, make it really what it's called, a conclusion. In other words, just conclude. In other words, just restate what you have already said in the introduction, especially in the introduction. There are people who like to restate what they have said in each paragraph. This is good, but I don't think that this is necessary. What is necessary is to, and some people think that in the introduction, in the conclusion, they have to state their own opinion. No, you are not obliged to do that. There is no need to do that, because, you know, stating your own opinion is like you are starting a new topic here, like a new answer here, and you don't want to do that. Stick to what you have. And here we come back to coherence and cohesion, of course. But that takes me again to the introduction, because a lot of people think that an introduction the last sentence in the introduction should be a question. No, please don't do that.
Never, ever.
What do you think about that tendency to do that? That is to finish with the question, the last sentence of, sorry?
It's because what we are used to before, especially in secondary school.
Baccalaureate, right? Yes.
To end the paragraph with a question.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, to say that this is the thesis statement of the essay.
Mm-hmm.
But this doesn't exist in the culture of English, of writing in English.
No, it doesn't.
This is part of perhaps of writing, of the culture of writing in Arabic, but not in English.
No,
so
not at all. Yes. And remember that this is a cliche. So a lot of people do that, and probably a lot of the candidates are going to do that. And remember that you want to stand out, like to be the best. So please don't do that. Yes. Let's go to the next one. Okay. So the next one is in literature. Let me read first. Can you see it? Or
yes, it's clear.
You can see it?
Yeah.
So this is from 2017 from the University of Schliff. This is doctorate examination in literature. For those, of course, who have tuned in and who are going to pass an examination in literature, this might be of interest to you. For those who are not, remember that the way in which you are going to answer a question, your methodology is the most important thing in a examination. So what we are going to talk about, despite the fact that it might not be directly related to the field in which you are going to pass the examination, what we are going to talk about in terms of methodology of answering the question might be important for you. So stick around. Yes. So Wolff was an important pioneer of the stream of consciousness technique. Though the mind of an average person was not considered interesting or important enough by earlier writers to merit elevating it to art, for Wolff and for other modernists, it was the most important thing discussed. So this is about literature and about the movement of modernism. Do we start first with what kind of question is it? It's not really a question.
Yeah, we've got the quote and we've got the directional word to discuss.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's more about a discussion. And here I believe that also there are two different views towards the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Here it's about how modernism was or is different from earlier movements as far as the individual is concerned, or the mind of the individual is concerned.
Let me for a minute stop at the word discuss, because there are many candidates and students, even at the university, when they see that, they are a bit confused. That is, they don't really know, perhaps rightly, they don't really know what is asked of them just to discuss what, whether this is true or this is false. So what do you think, or what comes to your mind when you read that word, that word? Some candidates and some students hate this word. Some others love it Like discuss means, yeah, I can say whatever I want.
Yeah, like talk. Like talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, discuss, yes, it is that you can talk, but of course you are always limited. We've got always a framework that we should not go astray from. Here, for example, when we have the word discuss, whether in this question or in other questions, I think that it is to develop the debate.
To develop a debate. Sure. Yes.
Yes. Yes, this is what is meant by discussed. Perhaps it is not necessarily meant that tell me about your own point of view or what's your stand.
No, yeah.
It's just tell me about the debate about this issue.
So in this case, an alternative word that you might find here is elaborate. There are others who put elaborate.
Yes, elaborate.
Yes. So in other cases, you will find elaborate, and it just means to develop what you have in the question paragraph, that is in that statement, in that paragraph. Just develop that and discuss that. Not necessarily to what extent you agree or disagree. No.
In what ways do you think that it would be different if the directional word was not discussed? Like it would be explain.
Explain?
Yes.
To some extent, it's the same. But here, it's explain is, I think, is very clear. That is, it is more specific. Like you are just going to explain what is meant by all of what you have or what has been said. That is, lay out the two sides. Or now when you are discussing, sometimes you can bring out the pros and cons, depending, of course, on the question. So yeah, explain is more specific and usually easier. But explain at the same time, since it is more specific, then it requires that you really know about that field or about that specific question that you have been given. Yes. So you should, in explain, you should show knowledge of the field.
Explain is more related to knowledge and to explanation, in fact, or clarification.
Yeah.
And discuss, I think, is more related to raising the debate and the development of that debate.
Exactly. So it's a bit more open at the same time. Yes. Yeah, it's a bit more open. So if we go into now the kind of essay that you should have here, again, I think a 5-paragraph essay is fine.
Yeah.
There's no need again to go through the layout, because we have already talked about that previously. So, but what kind of arguments do you think one should give here? Do you think that, if we read that again, to put ourselves a bit into perspective, Wolff was an important pioneer of the stream of consciousness technique, though the mind of an average person was not considered interesting or important enough by earlier writers. So this, as you have said, refers to earlier writers, perhaps specifically realism, elevating it to art. For Wolff and for other modernists, it was the most important thing. So do you think, for example, that one should first tackle how the stream of consciousness technique didn't exist before, and how the mind of an average person was not given much importance, and then move to how the modernists changed that situation? Do you think that this is a good approach?
Yes, this is very possible. Like to talk about what was before modernism, and then what is specific after the coming of or the emergence of modernism. So, of course, always as far as the mind of an average person is concerned. And I think that we can start with how this like very important issue, which is the mind of an average person was not considered before. And when it has become considered in modernism, we have got this technique of stream of consciousness.
Sure. And I think that, do you think, by the way here, that it's a make it or break it deal to know about the writings of Woolf?
I don't think so, because here we've got also other modernists. So it is not only Virginia Woolf. So here we can get that Virginia Woolf was a pioneer. She was one maybe who started this. When I say started, I mean among the people who started this, but not necessarily to know about Virginia Woolf in particular.
Okay. So you can refer to other modernists if you are, that is, and this is in general, of course, if you have the option to talk about other writers and you have one specific writer in the middle of the paragraph question, there you can of course go to the others rather than the one that has been specified, which you might not have an idea about this person or what they have written, or you might not know the person at all, the writer at all. Yes.
So I think here, for example, in this question, what matters is how modernism contributed to like spotlighting the mind of the average person through the stream of consciousness technique. Okay,
so at the same time, perhaps the most important keyword here is the stream of consciousness technique. And so I asked before in TEFL, do you think that knowing about the terms here and the concepts of literature is important?
In this very context, I think it is important.
Yes. I do so, yeah.
Because here it's about what has this technique brought as a change.
So you have to know about it and how is it used, what it means, where is it used, for what purpose, etc.
Yes.
I totally agree. Do you think that knowledge about modernism then is important in this case?
Yes.
Yeah. You have to. I think that you have to, so that you can know really the difference between earlier writers who were writing in the movement of realism and how different modernism and modernist writers were in comparison, of course.
Yes.
Okay, let's move to the next. So the next says, in view of applied linguists' concern with language in use at the broadest level of analysis, language is studied in relation to the culture and context in which it is used. Discuss the relevance of the previous statement in a technology-dependent era. So this is more in applied linguistics, but also in TEFL, of course, specifically, but generally in applied linguistics. So what kind of question is it first?
This is again a discuss question, so it is not it is not different than what we have said before. Yes, it is to elaborate on these
a statement, a statement that has been given to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here I've got a question. Please.
Sure.
Yeah. So here we're talking about the culture and the context in which it is used. So here we are talking about teaching language in a certain culture and in a certain context.
Yeah, teaching. Yeah, sure. So let's go over that again. So concerned with language in use. So language in use here is discourse. So this is more into discourse analysis and discourse use. At the broadest level of analysis, language is studied in relation to the culture and context in which it is used. And of course, here we really are in the field of discourse analysis. In fact, this is a question, this is basically a question about discourse analysis. Yes.
Yeah.
So the importance of context and the importance of culture in the way in which we use language has become very important. Now, we generally make, for example, the distinction between how language is used in the United States and how language is used in Britain. Although we have the same language in terms of structures, in terms of grammar, basically, of course, but the cultural context and the social context as well will or would specify how that language is understood, how that language is comprehended. And so the culture and the context are very different. The way in which we use, of course, the language here in Algeria, English, is highly dependent on the culture and our context, that is in Algeria, in Africa, in an EFL or not. We are not in a second language context, we are in a foreign language context. So that's context here then is very important. Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm. In relation, of course, and then we have to relate this, I guess, to the use of technology in
then discuss the relevance of the previous segment in the technology-dependent era. So the fact that language is studied in relation to culture and context, and the fact that now we depend a lot on technology. This particular question, of course, refers to how do we use the language, and especially English, for example, as a lingua franca. Now we have what we call word Englishes. We don't have only one English now. We have word Englishes, and the fact that a speaker has to use a language with people from different parts of the world assumes today that he or she must have intercultural competency, and that is to be able to use the language according to a specific culture with people that belong to a different culture from his or from hers, and use the language in a specific context. Of course, now we don't use English, for example, only to communicate outside. We use it for academic purposes. And of course, here comes again the field of ESP. So all of that is in there, yes. And especially with technology that has made these contexts converge easier, in an easier manner, because of course now we are having this discussion over Zoom. You can now connect with anybody at any time, of course, using technology. So yeah, it's very important there.
Yeah, so technology now is part of the culture and the context.
Of course. And of course, now being aware of how to use technology doesn't now include just turning on a machine and logging in, or it also means knowing how to be culturally appropriate when you are chatting, for example, or when you are having a meeting on Zoom, with people from different places. All of that is very important.
Yes, I do agree.
Yes. Okay. Let's move to the next.
Yeah.
And the next is from the University of Adrar. And this is in didactics again, in TEFL. And it says, fostering learner autonomy involves different factors so as to be accomplished. However, it is witnessing resistance on the part of teachers. Discuss. Again, this is an opinion, a statement, and you have to discuss it. It seems to me that there is one shared characteristic about all of these different questions. They all end with discuss, and they all have this tendency to have first a statement or a quote or a paragraph, and then you have to elaborate or discuss that. And do you think that it is, that are again here, that this is again a debate?
Here in this context, yes, I think that it is a debate between the role of the teacher and the role of the learner in the teaching-learning process.
Mm-hmm.
This is a teacher-centered versus learner-centered approach.
Yes. This is typical of the learner-centered, and of course, we have the keyword there is learner autonomy. So, do you think that first the candidate should first talk about what do we mean by learner autonomy and what are the factors that would enhance it?
Yes, here. And also there is another point that we need to develop, which is the viewpoint, the other viewpoint. Mm-hmm. Here we've got, it is witnessing resistance on the part of teachers. So there are teachers who might be reluctant towards learner autonomy. Yeah. So we've got here two different points to
so we can do you think that we in the first paragraph, or especially in the introduction, we should directly present these two sides of the issue, like the fact that learner autonomy is important, and it involves different factors in order to be achieved, but that there is a problem there, which is the fact, like this is a problematic here. The problematic is that the teacher or teachers are resisting learner autonomy. So this is a good way of going at it. Then if we answer the question itself now, let's answer the question itself.
Okay.
So can we start with the factors that are involved in enhancing learner autonomy? Can we start with that? I think that the first factor there is the teacher himself or herself.
Yes, this is possible. And I think that we should start with the attitude of the teacher first.
Yeah. So why do you think that we should start with that? And what kind of attitude is that?
Yes, here we should talk about the different attitudes of teachers towards the role of the learner in the teacher-learning process. Yeah, and then here we can go to next slide. We can talk about learners' autonomy.
Yeah,
and why it has become important.
Yes, I agree. So the different factors, of course, can be in the classroom and outside the classroom. So in the classroom, they are really related to the teacher. Outside the classroom, now, for example, we can refer to online courses, which would foster and which would enhance learner autonomy, because, of course, the learner is learning outside of the classroom first. So this is autonomous, not with the teacher, of course, directly involved. And the learner also is using the technology, for example, in learning online, using the technology to review perhaps or to practice what he or she has learned inside the classroom. So this is one way of doing it. Now,
yeah.
I think that
also to curricular activities,
to
collaborative learning.
Yes, totally. Yes.
Yes.
Now, another keyword there, I think, is resistance. So how do you think teachers resist learner autonomy?
I think that the possible ways in which the teachers resist learner autonomy is through not shifting to the other approach, which is through insisting that now the role of the teacher is still the wise on the stage.
Sure.
Yeah, so yes.
Sure.
Now, not passing, not sharing the let's say the process of learning with learners themselves is the most evident way of resisting learners' autonomy.
Yeah, I agree totally. And that can take many different shapes and forms, but the most important one, I think, is when the teacher is even inside a small classroom, not necessarily in an amphitheater at the university, but also in a classroom, small classroom in a private school or a public school, would take all the time of the lesson speaking and explaining. That is, here it assumes that the learners are empty vessels and that he should or she should fill them. And this also assumes that the teacher is active and that the learners are passive. They are just passive listeners. And I don't think that this is the case now. The case now is in, especially with more modern approaches to learning the language, it is more into, as you have said earlier, collaboration and working together in pairs or in a group, trying, of course, to figure out the rules themselves without having the teacher explaining it to them. So that can take many ways, that is, this resistance. And it really goes back to the view of learning and the view of teaching. So if the view of teaching or of learning first from the part of the teacher is that people learn when the teacher explains to them, I think that you would fall into this idea of resistance. But if the teacher has like a theoretical approach that or an understanding that learners learn in different ways, there are those who like the theory, there are those who like to try things, there are those who like to see things, there are the pragmatics, etc., etc. So if this is the concept that the teacher has of how people learn, I think that he would in fact be fostering and would be enhancing learner autonomy instead of being an obstacle to it. And the other thing, of course, that I want to mention here is the view of teaching, which is related to the view of learning, the view of teaching that the teacher has. That is, the view of teaching should be, I think, that the teacher should address the different ways in which people learn, in which learners learn. And you can see here that there is a relationship then between learning and teaching. And so if you separate the two, then you are going to fall into the trap of the teacher, the 100% teacher-centered approach. And so I think that the teacher now and teaching now has the new teaching approaches now are more into being the facilitator. The teacher is the facilitator, is the enabler instead of the lecturer, and instead of, that is the one who would help people think and acquire skills rather than the one who is going to just transfer knowledge to people.
Yeah, I think that it is possible also here to talk about the constructivist approach and active learning. That learners are the ones who construct meaning rather than
Exactly. And that can be, for example, as far as the grammatical component is concerned, or the if you are teaching content. So if you are teaching grammar, for example, now we know that in the modern approaches, you no longer like present it in the rule directly, like the present perfect is has or have plus past participle, and that's it. We know that we should present this, as we were saying earlier, for the question of language in context. You should present this in a certain context, then go into noticing the grammatical structure itself. Yes. Yeah. Okay, let's move to the next. So can you see this one? Yeah. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So in order for a teacher-made test to have validity, it must cover the skill or skills or content given in the teacher's instruction. Thus, it must be directly tied to the content objectives. If over half of a class fails the test, it would be better for the teacher to analyze the validity of the test rather than the lack of intelligence or skill level of the students. Again, discuss.
Yeah, I think it's a trend.
It is what? Sorry.
But it's a trend to have a passage or a statement, and then the candidates are asked to discuss it.
Yes, totally. And so by now, I've seen many entrance examination topics that are in this fashion. Yes, totally. I agree. So this is about, I think that the word which is coming back again and again here, and the idea which is coming back again and again here, remember that this is about assessment. And so the idea that is coming back again and again here is test validity. So can we start with that? That is explaining what we mean by test validity first. What is, how do we know that the test is valid? Or before that, what is test validity?
Yeah, or perhaps just to know what to discuss. So I want to ask, how many keywords do we have here?
We really have many.
Yeah, but I think that some of them refer to the same concept.
Of course, but if we start with test validity first, what do you think we mean by that? When the word test validity is here, what comes to your mind?
Here, I think it is the assessment of the teacher rather than of the learner. Yeah. So this is a teacher-made test to have validity. So this is just to assess the teaching process.
Yes. So I guess another way of asking this question is, when is a test valid? So I think that a test is valid a test is valid when it first and foremost, when it assesses what has been taught. That is, it cannot be valid if it doesn't assess what has been taught. That is, if it assesses something else, then it is not valid. If you have taught for 2 months, let's say, you have taught, I don't know, tenses, for example, and then you ask a question about a tense which you have not covered in your instruction, then that test is not valid. Why? Simply because it has not tackled, it does not address something that has been done with the learners. And that applies for any kind of content, any kind of skill that you are trying to of course, to assess there. And hence, of course, what you have here, it must cover the skill or skills or content given in the teacher's instruction. So here we come back to syllabus, of course, and to curriculum as well. Thus, it must be directly tied to the content objectives. And the other thing, of course, also is that a test is valid when it addresses the objectives of the course that you are given. Of course, if one of your objectives, let's say, is to students by the end of the lesson are able to introduce themselves in English, let's say that these are beginners, then the test should be about that. It cannot be about something else. It cannot be about, for example, this is about the test is about how to buy something, and that was not part of the objectives. Sorry,
so this is like about the criteria of a valid test.
Yes. Now, the last thing, the problem then, even if you the test from this point of view is valid, that is, you have included in the test what you have taught. It reflects the instruction. It reflects the objectives. If over half of the class fails the test, it would be better for the teacher to analyze the validity of the test rather than the lack of intelligence or skill of the student. So let's say that it reflects the instruction and the objectives, and still half of the class fails the test. What do you think then are other valid criteria here, criteria for validity for the to take into consideration? Let's say that it reflects the instruction and the objectives. Are there any other that come to your mind?
So this is what I meant when I said this is an assessment of the teaching process.
Mm-hmm.
This could be at the level of the content presented itself. This could be at the level of the method or the techniques of the teacher. Could be at the level of the interests of the learners, the environment. All of these are also possible and factors affect the validity.
Yes, and when it comes to the text itself, the validity here then should be assessed, that is, or analyzed of the test in terms of its difficulty. Is it perhaps it's too difficult and not accessible to the learners who are passing the test? So the problem perhaps is not in the fact that it doesn't reflect the instruction or it is not related to the content objectives, but that it is too difficult. Now, how do we know that it is too difficult? The question should be, has this question been, that is of the test, or has this test been done before in the classroom, in the course of the, for example, of the program or of the course, and are the learners used to that kind of format? So the format can be different from what they are used to. And so here they are not going to answer this. For example, we've had this question, the format might not be there. For example, all across or all through the course, you are asking them questions, true or false questions, and giving them quiz, choose A, B, or C. And then in the final test, you give them, for example, an essay. Well, they are not used to that. So if over half of a class fails a test, this test, it's because they are not used to answering in the essay format. And so the test here is not valid because they are not used to that with you, of course. Bearing in mind that even if your essay question reflects your instruction and content objectives, the test then here is not valid.
You mean they are not trained to this type of question?
Exactly, they are not trained. They have not seen it. They have not seen it with you in the classroom. You've given them perhaps different questions like quizzes, or like for example quizzes, or for example what else? What can you think of in terms of test? True or false, fill in the gaps, whatever. And then in the final test, this new test, you give them, for example, an essay, which is then the question becomes then, do they know how to write an essay? And have you assessed that? Have you as a teacher made it possible for them all across or all through the course to write an essay, even at home as a homework, so that to get used to that kind of question and how to answer it?
Because the types of instructions also reflect the skills that the teacher addresses.
Yeah,
so writing
exactly.
or matching or answering with true or false or justifying the answer are all skills or that are related to the teaching and learning process. Yeah. And that make part of the content given.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I agree. And you cannot, for example, teach one skill and assess another. So here you will have a problem in validity. But I think that one important aspect here, a bit hidden, but it's there, of this question is, if we read again the second part, if over half of a class fails a test, it would be better for the teacher to analyze the validity, So here of the test rather than the lack of intelligence. I think that the approach here, which is in this paragraph is what we call reflective teaching, which means that once you have a problem in the classroom, be it learners failing the test, not knowing how to answer, whatever it is, then the teacher has to, as it is written here, has to analyze the validity of what she has done or what he has done, rather than making assumptions about the lack of intelligence or the lack of skill from the part of the students. So I think that the approach, which is here, and which the candidate here should pay attention to and talk about, is what we call the reflective teaching. Do you agree with this?
Yes, I do. And this is exactly what I wanted to say when I said assessment of the teaching process. So this is a teacher self-assessment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to the last. And the last is language teaching often delineates quite strictly, that is strictly language classes taught in foreign language L2 from culture classes. To what extent do you disagree with this separation? And how could culture be integrated in EFL learning teaching based on your answer on the different learning teaching approaches? Well, we have a difference here. It's not discussed. Finally, it's something else. So this is to what extent? Again, this is a debate, right? So what is the debate here?
Yes, I think that the debate here is between the inclusion and the separation of culture classes from the language classes. Yes, in the different contexts of foreign languages.
Do you think that this question is really asking you for your opinion, or is it like guiding you towards some kind of a trend now in which culture is integrated into the classroom?
I think that even if we've got like this direct question, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the separation? But this does not ask you for your pure point of view. So this is another way to tell you what are the viewpoints regarding this, and then you may argue about your own point of view.
Yeah, sure. But at the same time, I think that there is in the background there is like an assumption that culture now is integrated into the classroom. Because what makes me say this is the second part, or the second question, which is, how could culture be integrated in EFL learning teaching? Well,
yes,
this clearly shows that the examiners are for culture to be integrated in EFL learning and teaching.
Yeah.
And so if you find that, I think that the best strategy is to say, not to say the opposite, like a strategy. Even if you had an opinion that says, yeah, culture should be separated, I don't think it's a good idea here to make like to alienate yourself and separate yourself from the crowd, unless you are really you have really good command over this issue.
Yeah, this is one way to guide you to agree with the statement.
Exactly, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is like, for example, when in the baccalaureate exam we've got two different exam topics, but one is very easy and the other one is very difficult. So everyone, there is a choice, but in fact there is no choice.
Yeah, and I of course remember again that this is a competition, so you shouldn't make things hard for yourself. So sometimes you have to keep your opinion for yourself. If you sense that the trend is towards a particular like answer, that doesn't mean you go against your principles, but it means that you should try to put yourself in the shoes of the correctors and answer accordingly. And here we come back to the earlier question of language in use and in culture and in context. So you should use your language to, And I think that personally, I would start this start this essay, this answer directly by saying, for example, I agree to a great extent with the opinion that no, I disagree. I disagree. I disagree to a great extent with the opinion that culture classes and language classes should be separated. Or I agree to a great extent. So, in other words, I mean, I think that you should state your position right at the beginning. What do you think? I think so. If I were answering this question, I would directly start with stating my position, and then from there, elaborate on that. That is, that would make life very much easier for me.
Yes, because in this way, it will help you to outline the essay and organize the ideas.
Exactly.
Yes, it will lead the discussion into one direction rather than two different directions.
Yes, exactly. And so that you are not like confused and confusing. We come back to this question. So you have one particular idea and you are just trying to develop it from there. And it is clear for everyone, especially for your examiners. It is very clear where you stand and what position you are defending and what arguments you are giving. And so your essay, believe me, is going to be much, much better. One last question here. There are some people who say you have to let the introduction to the end. Do you agree with this? in this specific context, that is in the context of writing an essay in an examination like this one.
I don't think this is possible, or at least I don't think this is effective, because writing the introduction would help you again organize the ideas.
Yes.
Especially maybe the thesis statement. It should be very well clarified and identified in your mind and in your outline, so that you can proceed with the rest of the essay. If it was in another context, this is possible.
Yes, I agree. You know, they say writing is a process, and the process of writing involves many different steps. The first one, and I think the one that we have stressed at the beginning, is the fact that you should write an outline. And an outline, the first part of your outline should be an introduction, of course, outlining your own introduction, or at least having the thesis statement. So I don't think that in this particular context, that is passing an examination and especially a competition, a contest, that you should write your introduction last. It's the other way around. You have to start with the introduction, because the introduction is going to determine everything. And writing the introduction is going to guide you through the essay and even your outline if you want to modify it later on. But if you do the opposite, your essay is going to be a mess, and then you are going to try to fix that in the introduction, like have an introduction that involves everything and nothing. And so you will have a big problem in terms of coherence and cohesion as well. And remember, what your examiners are looking for is not only whether you know what you know, that is in terms of answering a question about a specific field, in this case TEFL or literature or applied linguistics, but they want you to show that you have good command of the English language, good command of the grammar, but also, and more importantly, good command of writing processes, because at the end of the day, you are going to write a PhD when you are going to be admitted. خولة?
sometimes I even, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I even encourage my students in the class of written expression to write the introduction, the conclusion, and the outline, not only the introduction.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, especially when the conclusion is just to restate what you have said in the introduction. So this will leave no room for the mess that might happen in the essay.
Yeah, I totally agree. And with that, let's conclude. This was awesome. Thank you very much for joining me for this and being part of this. We should do this more often, inshallah. In the future, we'll have more participants perhaps, and we can discuss particular topic. For those, of course, who are watching or listening, I hope that this has been helpful. Khawla, thank you very much. And would you like to say a final word to the candidates?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you for these priceless efforts that you are making for helping students.
Hey, thank you.
For making it. And just one thing for the candidates.
Yes.
Remember very well that what the examiners need from you is not how much you know about the topic. It's just how you organize the ideas. It is how you put it out.
Mm-hmm.
What matters more than your knowledge, because you're not expected to be an expert or a specialist in that topic exactly.
Yes.
And I wish you best of luck, inshallah.
By the way, Khawla has passed the PhD entrance examination back in
2015.
2015, and you came number
one. It was
number one, the first, of course. Khawla is number one.
Thank you so much.
And since then, of course, she has also got her PhD, and Allah Barak, and now she is a teacher at the University of Wergla. So I'm very glad that you were part of this today.
Thank you so much, sir. And just to say that the specialty that I passed the exam in was not my specialty, was not something that I had in my master or in my licence.
Yeah.
But with good preparation and taking into consideration that whatever effort one makes will be rewarded by Allah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I hope that everyone would feel that indescribable feeling one day, inshallah.
Inshallah, ya Rab. One last thing, that is at the University of Wergla, they are going to pass this on Thursday, perhaps at other universities on the weekend next week. So how do you advise these candidates to pass the last week in terms of preparation, of course?
Of course. So I think, and I'm sure that a lot of students now are facing this dilemma that they haven't covered everything, and so they start hesitating about passing or not passing the exam. And this is real, because I have so many friends who are telling me, I think I should not go there because I have not prepared everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the last week should not be spent thinking whether you should go or you shouldn't, or what else you could do, but rather it should be spent in practicing writing, mm-hmm. and not necessarily adding more knowledge,
mm-hmm.
and in relaxing also, because it is really, really important, as you are going to have 2 different exams for a long period with all that stress. So relaxing is really, really important in the last days before the exam.
I agree. I totally agree. So with that, thank you very much, Khawla, again. And hey, everybody, see you soon. Bye, Khawla.
Goodbye.
Thank you.